This week, we're talking about a fantasy a lot of people keep trying to live. I'll be the exception. I'll take the job. I'll get closer to power. I'll pull it off. And I won't be the one who gets tossed overboard. So, we talk about the cabinet as cosplay economy, where loyalty is the qualification and competence is the liability. And then we pivot to Iran and the Strait of Hormuz, because the part everyone's skipping is the second and third order effects. You don't get clean wins, you get consequences. This is Shrink the Nation. Let's go.
This is Shrink the Nation, a podcast for thoughtful, informed adults, preferably holding a drink and definitely holding a thought. The views expressed here are ours alone. They do not represent our employers, institutions, licensing boards, government agencies, bourbon distilleries, or most emphatically, our families. They've been very clear about that. This show is for education and entertainment only. Nothing you hear is medical, psychiatric, legal, or professional advice. We're clinicians, not your clinicians. If something we say stirs you up, that's not a crisis, that's a journal entry, or an email sent politely. We're here to challenge ideas, not diagnose strangers on the internet. And if you are in real distress, please reach out to a professional who can actually help you.
All right, I'm David, 20 years in the military, a board certified psychiatrist, and today I have just the most giantest mug of coffee that says false on one side and has Dwight Schrute's Dunder Mifflin credentials on the other. But I'm holding it so that Robbie, you can see the false whenever I take a sip and whenever you talk.
Yeah, for the audience, Dave is a naysayer that always tells me I'm wrong. Now he's giving me visual signals.
Last week you were telling me to shut the fuck up,
Yeah. Well, you should.
which I did.
I'm gonna go back to a quote from the incredible movie Wedding Crashers. Shut your mouth when you're talking to me. At any rate, I'm Rob. I've got an ungodly number of years in the military and an ungodly number of years in psychiatry. Long time. Let's get into this because we got some stuff to talk about.
Yeah. As I was telling Rob before we started this, I'm just genuinely perplexed, a touch intrigued, and overall just interested in the first topic we're going to talk about, which is the recent news that our beloved Attorney General Pam Bondi has been let go. After a brief cry that I had reading the news, I've now gathered myself, and here we sit. So, what the fuck, Robbie? What?
So my gut instinct on this one was how do those who serve him not see this coming? That was my gut instinct. As I've thought about it, they do see it coming. They just think they're the exception to the rule. They think that they're going to have proximity to power. They're going to aggrandize themselves and they're going to accomplish something after. I don't think there's probably a single secretary in his cabinet that doesn't have in the back of their mind, I could be the president. And that's just not how it works. And anyone who's been keeping track, I mean, Trump won versus Trump 2.0, you are discarded quickly. No one survives. No one actually thrives. You know, the only one that thrives is who's the Arkansas governor now? Huckabee.
Sarah Huckabee Sanders. It's right,
That's it.
I believe. Yeah.
Yeah, I think she's the only one that has survived the onslaught. The rest of them get relegated to nothingness. They attach themselves, they bend as much as humanly possible to the whims and the desires of the president. Then they get discarded. And particularly the Department of Justice, Bill Barr, last time. He had a little more chutzpah. He had a little more in terms of ethics, and he tried, but he still made some choices that have relegated him to the nether regions. I mean, when's the last time you saw an interview with Bill Barr? Come on.
I haven't. I mean, the last time I heard his name is when I said it talking about the Mueller report. That's the last time I've even thought about Bill Barr. And then before that, I don't even remember. There's two, I think, major things I want to unpack with what you're saying. One is that you are quickly discarded by Trump. If your loyalty and fealty to him is not deemed adequate, you will be just relegated.
Her loyalty was unquestionable. If you go back to her testimonies, she was the Trumpiest of
Mm.
Trumps.
Yes.
She argued, she made a fool of herself. She didn't look serious. She looked ridiculous. She did what she thought was what he would like.
That's the other piece. So you have these two silos that you're trying to be in. One is unfettered loyalty and fealty to Donald Trump. But the other one, and this is subtle because we don't see a lot of people trying to fit into this silo, but it is separate, is competent in your role. And that's the conflict that you find yourself in when you are appointed to anything by Donald Trump, is that you need to maintain a picture of loyalty and fealty to the king himself. But you also must be competent enough not to embarrass him through your actions. And those are just diametric opposites sometimes. Like they're so different. And what that gets you is you're very, very likely to be dropped by him, which then runs into the second piece, which is once you've been dropped, now you are at legal risk for all of the actions that you took whilst trying to show your loyalty and your fealty.
Yeah. No, absolutely. From a psychological standpoint, he offloads so much of the responsibility to others. He puts pressure on them. They end up acting and they become the responsible parties. And in this case, I mean, why was she fired? Well, she was fired because she mishandled the Epstein files. Why did she mishandle the Epstein files? Well, because during the election, he signaled that the Epstein files were a thing. I'm going to get in there and I'm going to release all the Epstein files. That was part of his election promise. And, he ended up selecting her because she had a high reward sensitivity. She wanted the status, she wanted the proximity to power. He perceived her as having flexible enough ethics. She ended up having a personal loyalty over the institutional loyalty. Historically, we have had leaders, we've had secretaries of the president that have had a greater institutional loyalty, a sense that I have to follow the rules that are established by the United States for the good of the United States more than I have to follow the president. And they balance that. I mean, it's never easy. It's never a simple thing. There are human relationships at play. But in this case, she came into office, and I kind of feel for her as much as her performances before Congress have stunned me. I don't know if I've ever seen anyone more aggressive with Congress. It's like they ask her a specific question and she's like, and you suck, and I'll tell you why you suck. She never answers the questions. That's fascinating to me, but she's put in this position because the onus was put over onto her. It was an impossible task. And what's fascinating is that this individual, Donald Trump, and I'm speaking as a citizen of the United States with, full First Amendment rights here. But Donald Trump put this task onto her, which was impossible. And now he's punishing her for an impossible task. And not only does it demonstrate this lack of a two-way loyalty, that loyalty is a one-way thing for him. It's you have to be loyal to me. I do not have to be loyal to you. It is stunning that I based part of my election platform on Epstein files. I then put this person into place. I selected them personally. I said, this is the right person for this job. They took the cue. All right, the Epstein files. This is it. This is what we're going to focus on. And now she's being punished for it. Now, I'll be the first to say, I think she mismanaged that. I think she let power get to her head. She had a platform, and because she had that platform, she said some things. She's the one, it's on my desk. I have the Epstein list right here. Whether she did or not, I don't know. She also said there were 700 hours of child porn videos that she had. Maybe she does. I don't know. Who knows what she likes to do in her free time? I don't know.
I sort of got stuck on the feel bad for her. I'm harking back to a movie from 1995 called Lord of Illusions, and there's a
God, you're going deep.
yeah, it's this kind of neo noir horror movie, and I'm not a big horror movie fan, but I remember watching this with my friends when I was a teenager. And there's this scene where the
God, I was a full
leader
fledged adult in the '90s.
of this cult, and he's a demon of some sort, but he begins to sacrifice all of his followers as they're praying to him or whatnot. He says, "You're all weak." And as they're being sucked into the ground, they're like, "Fuck you." And that's all I can think of every time another one bites the dust with Donald Trump, which, by the way, is something that I wish we could play.
We'll just say we're thinking of Freddie Mercury right now.
Yeah. When an adult human being sees opportunity in a questionable place, when they sense power and they convince themselves that they are going to rise above it, I struggle to feel bad for him because it's not even like the first presidency. I would say in the first year of his first presidency, the people who got fired immediately, those people probably had no idea what was coming. There was no indication that he would be running his administration in such a way that he would just fire people on a whim.
Yeah, and there was the myth of normalcy in that first one. He actually
Yeah.
did try to hire people and bring
Yeah.
people in that were competent.
But then each subsequent round of person that came in became more and more questionable in their ethics because the job clearly required it. And as you watch the dominoes fall before you, you say, what can I do to not be a domino that falls? Well, this time around, I don't feel as bad for people who, if you clearly saw just by looking around you, and I'll tell anybody this. If you find yourself in a crowd, you are all facing in the same direction, hands up, cheering, whatnot. If you start to look around and read signs in that crowd that make you go, I wonder if I should be in this crowd. The answer is probably no, you shouldn't, because you are now a part of this crowd. So I can only imagine what the cabinet members, as they were being selected, and I think we all kind of remember who he was putting forth. Once you're part of that crowd now, and you have to wonder, I would say if I were one of the people he was selecting to be a secretary of anything, I probably would have looked at the Pam Bondi, the Christy Noam, the Pete Hegseth, and I would have said, well, this guy is not planning on building a superstar group. And so by my selection of that means that I am also not a superstar. And I know that takes a lot of insight, but these
It
are
does.
supposed to be adults who are relatively intelligent, one would assume, for them to not recognize. The first cabinet meeting, as you're sitting there cupping his proverbial balls, smelling them and telling him how nice they are. I think that would have been the first time that if you had missed it in the hearings where a typical cabinet secretary might get like 98 votes, 96 votes through the Senate confirmation process, and you're getting 51, 53
Yeah.
or 50 votes. And then, JD Vance is coming in and, doing his I Dream of Jeannie guy liner blinking to make it so, the theatrics of it. Are they not gonna bring that person in? If you missed it then, that you were clearly not qualified for this job and you're only being brought in here to tell the president how nice his penis is, then that's kind of on you at that point.
Your balls smell of hardwood, bourbon, and lavender.
I bet they do.
I bet they don't. I
Why are
don't
your
think they
balls
do.
such a different color from your face, sir? Why are they such a different color? I
They're
want everyone right now to imagine what
no, I don't want
Donald
them. I don't
Trump's
I don't want them to. No, no,
just,
no.
and he's
Stop. Stop
79.
right
He's
now.
79. They're probably about halfway to the floor right now. Like they're
Yeah.
probably
They're at
just
least
dangling there.
close to his knees.
Imagine Donald Trump at the YMCA. Because
He's that guy.
he'd
He's
be
that
that
guy
guy, the
that
naked
stands
wet
there
guy.
naked for no good reason,
Like he just took a shower, but his hair's not wet, but he's just
wanting to have a
dripping.
conversation with you. Just talking, totally
Just
naked.
talking at you, not talking to you, not a
Yeah, 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 yeah.
conversation, a one-way conversation that just doesn't end.
Absolutely.
Doesn't matter who's in there, where you just walk through. He's got one foot up on a bench,
Yep.
totally nude, testicles are just almost touching the bench themselves,
Yeah. What you doing there,
dripping
buddy?
wet,
Yeah.
dripping wet. And he's telling
Yeah.
you whatever his theory. You walk in and he's like, they're eating the dogs.
Those those Haitians, my God, in Youngstown, Ohio, they're eating the
They're eating
dogs.
the
They're eating
dogs. I want to know though, and just because you brought it up, but at what point, Robbie, and at what point was Youngstown ever a nice town?
never. I mean, I'm an
Youngstown, as I recall from many, many, many years ago, was like the meth capital before meth was really even all that popular in Ohio. It was like the meth capital of Ohio when opiates were running wild.
hey, hey, they're trendsetters. They're trendsetters.
That's right.
Yeah, they're ahead of the curve. Yeah, Youngstown was never a destination point.
Man, our tens of
However,
listeners from Youngstown are going to be furious at us.
we don't have tens of listeners from Youngstown. We might have a listener, maybe. And I'm
We
not
just ruined this
demeaning
morning's
Youngstown,
meth.
but yeah, right. Go ahead and take your meth hit and then listen to me. And then brush your teeth for Christ's sake, because meth's awful for your dental health. Haitians don't eat dogs, David. That's not a thing.
No, they eat cats.
They don't eat cats either. They don't hate Haitians. It's not a
I
cultural thing. I
No, I
don't
feel like
understand.
you're just trolling the president. I mean, the president said so. It's
Yeah.
got to be true.
I'm trolling. So
Is it?
let
Yeah.
let's go backwards. Let's go backwards to Pam Bondi and the folks who accept jobs that they're not qualified for. What we're seeing psychologically is enhancement bias. It's a ridiculous level of narcissism. If someone offers me a job, like if someone came to me today and said, I want you to be the director of the VA or the
Secretary of Defense.
my gut level instinct response would be, I'm not qualified for that. And those who don't actually think through that, don't come up with this. Like our esteemed Department of Defense, alias Department of War leader, has zero, big goose egg, zero qualifications to be in that job. There's not a single one. I wrote a book about how woke policies are affecting the military. I was a less than wildly successful junior officer. I never commanded a unit. I didn't command a company, much less a battalion, much less a brigade, much less a division, much less the entire Department of Defense. So this is an unqualified individual who accepted a job for what? What did he think? And then he came in with the energy of a junior officer and the focuses of a junior officer. So when you're a junior officer, you have very little power, you have very little authority. You're in charge of the fitness of the unit. And what did this guy do? He came in and focused on fitness. That became his thing. And when you're a junior officer, you think being a special forces dude is cool and that's what wins wars. And they don't. Folks, to our tens of listeners, logistics wins wars, preparation wins wars, planning wins wars. It's not our special forces. It's not the average soldier having, six pack abs and being able to lift a bunch of weight. That's not what wins wars.
Jessica Foster. That's who wins wars.
Jessica Foster in her mini skirt uniform and her non-standard decorations. So when our POTUS selects you, what we've seen is you're not selected on the basis of qualification. You're selected on the basis of loyalty and the sense that you're going to do what I want you to do. And the folks that accept these jobs are envisioning that they can go into that environment, they can somehow navigate the demands that are being placed on them. They can come out the other side and be a candidate for the president of the United States or successful. And what we've seen is no, that's not how it plays out. You get embarrassed, you're revealed for being incompetent, and then you go into anonymity.
As you were talking, my mind started to wander, as it frequently does.
Of course it does.
Not listening to you on 2 point speed. No speed is brutal, Robbie, brutal.
I know. I'm slow. That's my appellation. We're just slow talkers.
But you brought up something that I thought actually moved my brain in a direction. So you said when you're selected, you're not selected based on competence, but based on loyalty. And it occurred to me that it wouldn't be difficult to find people who were complimentary of Donald Trump to some degree and have some competence. It was almost more of an audition than interview. Rather than looking at people for their abilities and their accolades in the fields, what was being looked at was their ability to look like they could do a job just visually. What everybody in these positions is doing is cosplay with the ability to go back and still be overly complimentary. It's not that they are in a job. They are in a role. They are just up there acting without the benefit of the knowledge that it takes and the know-how to actually accomplish the roles. They're functioning that way. And I think it was by design. I think Donald Trump wanted people who looked the role, which he's always been very much into appearances.
Idealize.
In 2015, Lester Holt was hosting a debate between Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton at the time. He said to him, "What did you mean when you said, quote, she doesn't have a presidential look?" To which Donald Trump replied, "I didn't say that." To which Lester Holt then replied, "You did say
Yes,
it.
you
It's a
did.
quote. It's a quote." But he's always been much more into the appearance of, does somebody look like they can be in this role? He ignored that largely, at least at the beginning of his first presidency. He actually made a fair effort to put people in who could do the jobs. He just didn't like it when it turns out they could do the job, and part of their job was to do the job
Tell him no.
correctly. Yeah, part of the job is to say no. So instead, he brought in people who have that look. It's reality TV. It's interesting as hell to watch,
Scary as hell to live.
but not people that you would ever want running anything that manages your life. This seemed like a movie audition, not a job interview.
Well, it's a narcissistic system dynamic. So first you idealize, then you use, then you devalue, and then you replace. If we were sitting in the office with a narcissist and we were engaged in psychotherapy, this is the dynamic that they would engage in their life. They would find a partner who they idealize. They are wonderful, perfect. They look the way I want them to look. They have the credentials I want them to have. Then they pull them in. They use them for their own self aggrandizement, their own ego integrity. And then when it turns out they're actual humans bound by the same rules and laws the rest of us are bound by, which include ethics, morals, job requirements, all the things that get in the way of pretending that you're perfect, they then devalue them. When you fail a narcissist, you become an absolute failure. It's not that we disagree. It's not that we have a different perspective. It's not that your demands are different than mine. It is you are horrible. You are terrible. You are the worst. And then you replace. And that's what we're seeing. And what's fascinating to me is people keep putting their hat in, oh, yes, I'm next. I'll do this. And the only thing I can think of in looking at the group that ends up getting engaged is that they're equally narcissistic to the point that they think I'm going to be the exception to the rule.
Him, Mondi, at no point did she ever stop having that strong loyalty to Donald Trump. So the issue at hand wasn't her ability to stand there and just pile praise upon him or do exactly what he was asking. It was that what he was asking was going to lead to failure on her part, which he cannot tolerate. This isn't looking good for me. Her inability to make the Epstein files go away,
No?
which wasn't ever in her control. Right? Like that was kind of the problem, was her inability to find credible evidence backing up his claims, which were baseless. Her ability to make them go away and to still follow the narrative that he wanted without reality setting in, which is that his name is all over. The guy very publicly had a pretty deep relationship with Epstein. And so her ability to simultaneously say, here's all the bad guys, you're not one of them. And in the absence of that, well, it's just not a problem anyway. She bungled it, but she bungled it because he needed her to, which was a failure. That's different though. When you get to Christy Noam, I think her firing is interesting because she was from the perspective of running that agency. I believe she was running it exactly the way that Stephen Miller wanted her to, as far as the
Mhm.
things that were being done. They were paramilitarizing CBP and ICE. They were going after immigrants. Now, were they going after violent, dangerous immigrants? No, but that was a manufactured thing from Donald Trump. That was campaign rhetoric. Oh, there's millions upon millions of violent. That wasn't real. He made that up, people. Newsflash. There aren't millions upon millions of violent immigrants in our country. There are some violent immigrants and there's some violent citizens, but there weren't millions upon millions of people that we were going to just kick out of the country. And the truth is, had there been, CBP and ICE would have already been trying to kick them out. That was kind of their whole MO, is trying to track down. But as it turns out, Robbie, violent, dangerous criminals who are here illegally, they're kind of hard to find. Who is really easy to find are the people who are here illegally, who are just going about daily life trying to live the American dream, or the people who are trying to become legal citizens. They're really easy to find because they go to court. They do all the things that we're asking them to do, the hoops that we're having them jump through. And so those are naturally easier targets for a massive operation. But that didn't seem to be the reason that she got fired. What got her canned was not even her perceived loyalty to him, I suppose. I mean, she definitely kissed the ring and smooched the nutsack like anybody else, but
Lavender, bourbon, and
sandalwood.
sandalwood.
But what got her into trouble was when questioned about her questionable spending, she blamed him. Now, I don't know if she had a conversation with Trump and said, I'm going to do this, and he thought it was an awesome idea or dismissed it, or if there was a conversation at all. But I think this is a miscalculation on her part. I'm not on his cabinet. But if I wanted to remain on his cabinet, I would be very reluctant in the middle of a Senate hearing to say his name in anything but a wonderful, positive way. If they said, did Donald Trump approve of you spending a couple $100 million on these advertisements that largely feature you speaking English to a group of people who presumably don't, to get out of the country whilst riding a horse? My answer would be Donald Trump has a lovely set of testicles that just smell of lavender and sandalwood, and we all should appreciate that. That'd be the only acceptable answer for him, because if you said, no, he approved it, whether he did or not, you just invoked his name in a less than pleasant way. You're done. You're done. Now, there was a bit of aggrandizement on her part,
Yeah,
clearly.
that's the two things. So there's an offloading of irrational responsibility to accomplish something that is not legal, that is not ethical. So if you fail in accomplishing that, that's going to result in dissatisfaction. The other thing that absolutely results in dissatisfaction is the sense that you're self aggrandizing. And that's where she ultimately failed. She self aggrandized. She put herself on a horse and she featured herself in these commercials. She was trying to increase her exposure
But she was doing that the whole time. See, that's where I
the
don't.
whole time.
She was cosplaying whatever I don't even know what it was, but she was doing it the whole
I don't know.
time.
She's running around in body armor and
Yeah, and like holding guns and
yeah.
posing in front of people in foreign prisons. I mean, she was doing that the entire time. I don't think that's what pissed him off. I'm sure he loved the commercial with her standing there. Now, I think when it got pointed out that this might be other people working to find reasons to get rid of her, but when it was pointed out that she was putting herself above him, hypothetically at least, through these things. I mean, it was thou shalt not worship false idols as she was building herself up. Now, was that exactly what she was doing, or was that any different than what she'd done? Because those weren't new commercials. Those had come out months and months earlier. So it wasn't new. I think maybe somebody pointed that out to him, but where she really faltered was not.
Advertising on a news agency that he watches.
No, because I think he would have. In fact, that was the reason that they put it on there. I don't think it was that she made the ad. Everything she was doing, everything that Hegseth was doing, everything that Pam Bondi was doing was they were, again, cosplaying a role so that he could see that they were doing it. So that on TV, he could turn it on and see that they were defending him, that they were putting forth whatever plan he had and saying the Justice Department was weaponized against their political enemies, and we're going to fix it, and we're going to make sure that doesn't happen again. As they do that exact thing, we're going to strengthen the military by getting rid of all this DEI. So all of the people who were in positions of authority who were probably making it quite strong, we're going to get rid of those people and put in people who have more fealty to us, definitely strengthening the military. And when you had her cosplaying that role, she wasn't cosplaying the role to the American people. She was playing it to him. She wanted him to see that she was out there doing the things that he needed her to do, or he wanted her to do. The issue wasn't that, I don't think. I don't think it was that she was doing that. I think the issue was that when it was found that there was a questionable way that she went about doing that, and they brought it up in a negative context, she blamed him.
Mm.
And the truth is, very realistically, he could have said, yep, that's fine, go for it. And all is well. Nobody would know. But the fact that she invoked his name and blamed him, I think, is what pissed him off. Because the cosplay thing wasn't new. I mean, she's been pretending to be a beautiful woman for a long time, just like her husband. And nobody's questioned that. So,
No, a lot of people have.
well,
South Park has nailed it.
what was the reason he picked her?
She did look good in a pair of jeans.
That was the reason he picked her, is to begin with. So I don't think putting yourself out there was what pissed him off as much as you don't name names. I've watched Goodfellas enough time to know, Robbie, that you keep your mouth shut.
Yeah, so accepting a job is like assuming you are a favorite coffee cup and it turns out you're a solo cup. That's how it
Well,
plays
it
out.
means you're a solo cup who kind of looks like a coffee cup. You just don't stand up to a lot of washes. Yeah.
You're easy to discard. It's not about belief. The folks that go in there aren't believers. They're looking for proximity to power and it distorts their judgment. So, hey,
What are you going to do?
let's move on to Iran because I'm ready to talk about it.
All right. Oh, I've been waiting a few weeks for Robbie to be ready to talk about it. What are our ground rules here? What's the scope of this discussion, Robbie? Where are we going with this for our tens of listeners?
Yeah. So my fascination lately has been in the lack of forethought to this whole operation. For our tens of listeners, just to set the stage, Iran is often used in junior field grade officers. So we're talking majors, their education in order to get them to think about second and third order effects. So when you make a plan, when you do something, anything, and I don't care if it's like, I got to go to the grocery store, there are second and third order effects that you have to consider. Iran has often been utilized to demonstrate second and third order effects because attacking Iran's easy. They were a weak target from the air. They lacked the defenses. We could neutralize those things. It's not risk free. And we've seen in this last week, an airplane got shot down. And I certainly am hoping beyond hope that that pilot is still alive and that we are able to retrieve them before they are captured by Iran. So they're not toothless, but they didn't have the sharpest of teeth. That's the easy phase. The easy phase is the attack. The challenging phase is the second and third order effects. So you have to think down the line. If you do this thing, what are the things that are likely to come from it? And we didn't do a whole lot. And we talked about this weeks ago, that my sense was hope was a course of action for them, that they thought that, gee, we're going to attack, we're going to decapitate the leadership, the people of Iran are going to rise up, we're going to have agreeable regime we're going to walk away looking like superstars. And, I'm not going to deny that Iran, they potentially had a nuclear threat. All right, maybe down the line somewhere. Did they have missiles that could reach the US? No. Were they close? No. Could they get there? Potentially. They had the technology that they potentially could get there. And I'm not going to deny that we've been in a bit of a stalemate with them for the last 40 years since the overthrow of the Shah. Attacking Iran's easy. Bombing them is easy. What gets hard, and this is the second and third order effects, is that they have a position which allows them to control the Strait of Hormuz. Now, for our tens of listeners, I want you to go to the map. I want you to look at the Persian Gulf. There's a narrow area when you're leaving the Persian Gulf that is the Strait of Hormuz.
Hormuz.
But for the rest of it, it's Hormuz. So when you're leaving the Persian Gulf, there is a narrow area called the Strait of Hormuz where the waterway narrows. And the Iranians have a really long shoreline along the Strait of Hormuz. It's a very mountainous area. They have several islands that they have control of that extend out into the Persian Gulf. It makes it challenging to control that waterway if they don't want us to, because it's not hard to disrupt a waterway for civilian ships. It'd be hard to do it for military ships, harder, but still, and you can speak toward this,
Yeah, with
mines and
drones, man.
drones and
I mean, missiles are one thing. They're big. They're, fairly easy to track on radar. We have the SM2s, SM3s that can take out missiles pretty easily, but they're expensive. Unfortunately, drones are really small. They're fast, but not so fast. It is more difficult to take out drones
yeah.
than missiles. And they're cheap. They're cheap as shit. You can throw a whole bunch of drones out there, and even if you're getting all 99% of them, just the 1% or the 0.1%, if you're throwing so many, are incredibly dangerous.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's the
Yeah.
missile systems that are actually primarily for defense on
Oh,
ships. We're probably pretty lucky at this moment in time that Iran has not chosen to attack our fleet because they probably could.
well, I think our fleet is positioned such that they're outside of their range.
But we're not in the strait, and that's kind of the point is we're not
Yes, exactly.
offering up the support that we could because it would be too dangerous. You're asking for warships to be sunk if you put them in that strait right now.
And we don't want to do that.
The only reason that they don't do it typically is because they don't want to start a war, right? The only reason that you can have those ships in the Strait of Hormuz on a regular day is that they're safe because you're walking quietly and holding a big stick. But as it turns out, if you're walking around hitting people with the stick,
It
not
draws
just carrying
attention.
it, they have the tendency to punch back. And
Yeah.
it's not as fun.
Well,
The embarrassment of having a warship sunk by a $20,000 drone or 10 would be probably too much, but that's why they're not defending it
no,
because they
there's no
can't.
doubt. There's a challenge there from a purely sea power standpoint. The other issue here is that if you can control the Strait of Hormuz, if you can just disrupt it, if you can dump a bunch of mines there, if you can control the sea line, you can launch a lot of cheap drones. It limits military power. They have some capability to defend themselves. It shuts down utterly civilian transport. They're not going to take the risk. They're not going to take these multi-million, $100 million ships through the Strait of Hormuz because they have zero ability to protect themselves.
Well, what this reminds me of is when I was a younger human, I would say when you were a little kid and you were riding around in your parents' vehicle, you thought it was the most amazing, fast thing ever. You're sitting in the back of a minivan and your parent floors it once or whatever, and you're like, holy shit, this is a rocket ship. It's the most amazing thing. And you have that belief that it's kind of invincible, just like your parents in your mind. But then you become a teenager and you don't have access to a sports car. And all of a sudden, you're the one driving, and you realize that physics starts to play this role in your life that you never thought about before because in your mind, you could own a vehicle that was both sporty and capable. Turns out if you own a minivan, yeah, it can fit a whole bunch of people, and that's wonderful. And you could maybe even move some furniture in it, but you're not gonna get off the line and go 0 to 60 in 3 seconds in that damn thing. And it doesn't occur to you until you start to drive. What surprises me is that Donald Trump thought, I mean, he's heard we have the greatest military in the world. We have the most powerful military. We can do some amazing things. But it wasn't until he decided to take it for a spin that he realized that that doesn't mean that it can both be fast and economical at the same time. You might be really quick, but you don't have the ability to help your buddy move. That didn't connect in his brain. I don't know if it still has, but it's become apparent that yes, we can bomb the bejesus out of Iran from a distance, but that takes away our ability to control the shoreline because they're gonna try to fight back. And so, yeah, man, you got a fast car, but you're
Well,
not moving your couch.
I guess I'm hoping that our tens of listeners understand is that restricting the Strait of Hormuz, it restricts 20% of the world's oil. And this idea that what's been proposed is, well, we don't need it. And we do produce quite a lot of oil. There's no doubt about it. However, we are also tied to a world economy, and that world economy impacts the prices of oil, regardless of you're pulling it out of Texas or you're pulling it out of the Persian Gulf. A barrel of oil costs the same thing. So if 20% of the world's oil is restricted, it's going to affect our economy. It's going to affect the world economy. When fuel prices increase, it's going to affect food prices. It's going to affect goods prices. It's going to affect when you buy a pack of underwear from Amazon, and they're already adding surcharges. They announced it this week. Also, what I want our tens of listeners to understand is imagine your little town, whatever town you live in, or maybe you live in a big town. Who knows? But imagine taking it over. Imagine controlling it militarily. It's no easy task. Space is bigger when you're there. And if you look on a map and you think, all right, we're going to go take Karg Island. We're going to occupy the shoreline of Iran. It's big when you are a human who is there. And our ability to take over an island is limited. Our ability to take the shoreline of Iran along the Strait of Hormuz is ridiculously limited, and it requires a ton of on the ground soldiers. We have to push in deep in order to control this. So, my speculation is in the next couple of, and if I'm wrong, call me out on it, our tens of listeners. My speculation is in the next 2 weeks, we're going to be in a ground war. We're going to have troops on the ground. We're going to try to take Karg Island. That's not going to do it. It's not going to be sufficient because the shoreline's still there. And then it's going to escalate from there. And before you know it, there's going to be 40,000 troops in Iran. What's relevant about this is that we started it. We can't step away from it unhurt. We can bomb the shit out of them unhurt. Unfortunately, we've had a plane shot down and they're hurt. We've had soldiers killed and other military members killed so far. That's a real cost. But even if we, in doing what we've done, attacking in a relatively safe way, we can't step away from this without consequence. And what I'm hearing right now from the administration is we came, we attacked, we won, we're stepping away because we don't need the oil. But there's a lack of understanding of the second and third order effects to the world economy, to our economy, just the nature of it. And this is something that's taught to 30-year-old low-ranking field officers. And I'm absolutely incensed, is the best word, that these things weren't adequately considered.
Maybe they were considered. I mean, Pete Hegseth came on as they were being scrutinized for not considering these second order effects. And he said very clearly that we definitely considered them. So I guess the two options that we have are they didn't consider them at all, which is kind of a huge oversight, or they were considered and ignored. It was just something they said it doesn't really matter. Now, I believe Donald Trump is notoriously famous for not actually paying attention to the security briefings
Details.
that no, the security briefings that he's given, and probably doesn't really care much about the details, I can only imagine that as they're like, well, there's a possibility or a strong possibility that the Strait of Hormuz, and he probably was like, okay, go away. Yeah, just do it anyway. But I don't know that he did that. I have no idea. That's conjecture. So they said that they considered it. It clearly is having an effect. Here's what pisses me off, Rob, is that if we were to go back and listen to our show from weeks and weeks ago, we unfortunately tend to be pretty right when it comes to our predictions about the future now.
That's our narcissism. You called this 3 months ago
Yeah.
that was going to
But
happen.
yeah, but in all fairness, Ray Charles could see these things coming from a mile away. So are we geniuses who can predict the future, or is this just
Yes.
playing out exactly the way that all of us should expect? But apparently, 30% of the Republican Party is shocked by it and then applauding it. All right, this is great. Underwear costs more money now because, as it turns out, like you said, gas does increase the cost of shipping anything, as we're all about to find out if you try to travel. But I guess if you never leave your hometown, who gives a shit? You don't really care.
No, you start to care with your Amazon orders because they've
Yeah.
added a surcharge.
Yeah.
So it's going to affect everyone.
Oh,
Everyone.
no, it already has. Yeah, it already has. The really telling part of it is that while simultaneously doing all of this, they've also made efforts, clear efforts to dismantle our country's ability to rely on non oil related fuel sources. So, getting rid of solar, getting rid of wind, making it less desirable to own an electric car. I mean, I'm going to predict right now that people are going to want electric cars more as gas stays super. I paid 5.60 the other day for a gallon of gas. 5.66 I think is what it was. So, yeah, I think the demand for those things will go up. But this administration has been famously salty against them. It seems to be more based upon Biden's desire to move the country into more green energy than anything. It was just somebody else liking it, meaning that we have to hate it. So, it's fun when geopolitical economics starts playing a real role in your life when you just want to sit in your little hometown and live your life.
There are a few times in my life where I've been more frustrated. Most of the time throughout my life,
Hey, it happens to every guy, Robbie. It's not a big deal. Okay.
this has never happened to me.
You just let
I
it go, Robbie. You
right.
gotta just work through it. Just let it go.
I've never failed to perform. I'm so sorry. No, there's been few times. So throughout most of my life, I've not always agreed with the decisions that were made. I did have the sense that, all right, they have more understanding. They have information that I don't have that's driven this, and they're considering the second and third order effects. This is one that is just stunningly lacking in long term consideration. And the talking points at this particular juncture are completely inconsistent with the realities. We won, we're leaving, we don't need their oil. It's someone else's problem.
Now give us $200 billion for this war.
Yeah, totally inconsistent with the reality of how this will truly affect us. That if we walk away and the Strait of Hormuz is still basically under Iranian control.
If we were doing therapy with this administration, just like when somebody comes in and all they can talk about is their ex, you got to ask. So it sounds like you still have feelings there. And they're like, no, it's over. It's done. I don't care anymore. And then they just completely rail on that person. You say, then why can't you move on with your life? And the reality is because the feelings still exist. And I think the same thing here when the administration keeps coming in and saying, it's over, it's done, we've won. Then my therapy mind goes to, so why are we still talking about it? Why are we still attacking? Why are we escalating? Is there a disconnect? Are we just lying to ourselves? Are they just lying to themselves? Are they trying to deceive and trying to hide that from us. What's going on, Robbie? That's where my mind goes.
Well, I guess this is the frustrating thing is that it's a lack of responsibility that going back to Woodrow Wilson, the buck stops here. The buck doesn't ever stop. It just keeps running because
Yeah.
there's no place for it to stop. The buck stops with the responsible party that said, yes, let's do this. I don't think I'm going to surprise our tens of listeners in saying that that was a presidential decision. And now it's becoming other people's responsibility. The buck is being pushed to other people. It's our allies' fault. It's China's responsibility. It's Japan's responsibility because they get most of their oil from the Persian Gulf. But that's not how the world works.
We didn't love him anyway, Robbie.
Well, we produce a ton of oil. Okay, fine. But if you are an oil producer here in the United States and the prevailing cost of a barrel of oil is $160 and, the United States is saying, yeah, but we want you to sell it to us for 60. They're going to say, no, we're going to sell for $160 because that's what it's worth right now. And there's the
We didn't spend millions of
consequences.
dollars on your campaign to sell our oil for below market value, I think is what they're
Exactly.
saying. We didn't put you here to lose money. There's second order effects to that, and I think that's what we're seeing. So, as you said, they weren't considered in general. Maybe the larger picture for all of us, American voter, is that there are second order effects to everything, second and third and fourth and fifth. And if it's a little more difficult to buy a birthday gift for your kid's friend, that's has to do with how the voting public voted. It's Donald Trump's war. This is something that he did. So it's on
It
him.
reminds me of my misspent youth. Spent too much time in bars. And this is the equivalent of one of those scenarios in which you sucker punch someone in a bar and quickly leave. And then victory.
Hope the cops don't show up later.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
All right. I think that's it, Robbie. We've covered, maybe not to everyone's satisfaction, but we're pretty good at that.
Yeah, and
Getting
not the
people
truth.
excited and then leaving them high and dry. So prescriptions,
Yeah, we have to stop as a society of demanding clean wins. If you demand a clean win all the time, you're going to get sold fake wins. And what we're looking at right now is an entirely fake win.
yeah, absolutely. It's weird to frame it from the perspective of wanting a clean win if you were not wanting it in the first place. But yeah, wanting it to just be over without any secondary effects, especially when you didn't ask for it in the first place. So mine speaks to if you were offered a position that you're clearly not qualified for just because somebody says, I think you'd be great at this, you might be getting set up for failure. It's a good idea to check your own credentials and resume to decide if this is a job you should be doing. If somebody's just building you up for failure, then maybe recognize that because you're going down with the ship. Okay, Robbie, closing thoughts.
Fuck.
You heard it here first, folks. Fuck. All right. Well, thanks to everybody for sticking around, having to listen to us. Hopefully, this calmed your nerves and didn't get y'all riled up.
It shouldn't. It shouldn't. Everyone should be terrified.
And we'll get terrified people. So, thanks so much. Hit subscribe, hit like, share us with your friends. Go back a few episodes and listen to us and see that we actually were surprisingly accurate at times. We're stupid and we're ridiculous, but we're not
Yeah,
wrong.
but
So,
not wrong. Oh, we're idiots, but
that should be
we're
our
not
new.
wrong.
We're ridiculous, we're stupid, but we're not wrong. Did not wrong, drunk idiots.
You called this months ago after Venezuela. You
Yeah,
said this is we're still waiting on
Cuba.
Cuba. And we've softened a bit on Cuba. We're letting some oil get in, but because we got other shit going on. But
Yeah, that's
you
temporary. Yeah.
you nailed it.
Yeah. I'm gonna in prediction mode here. Pete Hegseth gets fired next. I don't know if it'll be soon, but it'll be next for sure. Pete Hegseth will be blamed for this war not going the way that Donald
Yeah.
Trump wants it to be.
Yep.
He'll be on the chopping block here soon.
We're going
Yep.
on record,
And
folks.
he'll be the next one. So all right, that's it. We'll cue up that music and we are out.